Firstly, I just want to thank everybody for turning up today. We know that we're still small in number because the vast majority of the population are still not engaging with what I'm about to talk about. I have here on my left the Killarney Declaration, which was read to a globalist summit in Killarney on the 20th of May, at which the Director General of the World Health Organization was speaking. As we speak, as we gather here on this, sacred ground for the Irish, as we speak, the Minister for Health, Stephen Donnelly, is over in Geneva at the World Health Organization Assembly, poised with his pen to give up without any reference to the Irish people who predate the state by centuries, handing over more sovereignty and freedom and allowing to be put in place what can only be best described as a global technocracy. During the week, Irish-American professor of international relations, a career-long expert on international institutions, supranational organizations, Professor Francis Boyle, described the World Health Organization pandemic agreement and the regulations as a totalitarian medical police state. That's what he's described it as. It's exactly the words that I use, almost exactly, in the Killarney Declaration. But where we are is far more serious than that. The COVID-19 was a runway to land what they're attempting to land in Geneva this weekend. Half of it has failed already, which we can thank to a large degree all the activists throughout the world, especially the Japanese, and most especially the entire Republican political establishment in the United States, which came out on the 1st of May and told the US President, under no circumstances are you signing anything with the World Health Organization on our behalf. All of the state attorney generals of the Republican wing said the same thing. A number of states in the United States, led by Louisiana, are bringing out legislation effectively to ban the United Nations, the World Health Organization, and its strategic alliance with the World Economic Forum from the soil of those states. They've got the mentality right. Over here, the Irish media establishment in the first quarter 2020 died. It finished. There has been no journalism. There has been no questions asked. The basic questions have not been asked. They're all asked here in this declaration, every single one of them, because the World Health Organization is an agency for a much greater power behind what's going on. The United Nations, just let's look at what's happening. We see the flooding of Ireland by economic migrants, in inverted commas. It's happening in other countries. It's taken me 3 years to figure all this out. For most of that time, I didn't believe what I was looking at. It was so big, so vast, I said it couldn't be true. But the more I read, the more conferences I went to, the more it became clear that all these dots were joined up. There's a myopic focus on what we're seeing happening in our neighbourhoods. That's a distraction. It's a very serious distraction, but it fails us to see the bigger agenda. So we see that coming, and that's destabilising society. It's also destabilising other countries. Ireland isn't unique, but what makes Ireland unique is we're a very homogenous culture, and that makes us very different. We're also the global headquarters in Europe for the American pharmaceutical and technology industry. So when you look at joining the dots, what you see is that going on. Then you see the attack toward children, misgendering and sexualization of children. That's UN policy being enacted throughout our schools. Then we see hate speech laws. The hate speech law is all part of it. The hate speech law, which has not been enacted yet in Ireland because the political establishment is very sensitive about it now because they're in an election year. That is designed to stop us from talking to one another. It's to send a cold chill through the population. That's its intention. And then you look beyond it. You look beyond the WHO and the UN. What do you see? You see digital IDs coming in through the EU, being promoted in open sight. It's going to be great, isn't it? It's not. It's part of the digital trap that's being created, because into the digital ID passport will go your vaccine passport. Remember, the World Health Organization wants member states to actually put PCR tests, these uber magnified PCR tests, discredited PCR tests, into human wastewater find the pathogens, enhance them in gain-of-function laboratories, including in Ireland, and then do deals with the pharmaceutical industry on the vaccines that will be created. In other words, they want a carbon copy of the Wuhan Institute of Virology on Irish soil and on the soils of all the other member states. Now, you might say this is madness. Absolutely it's madness, but it's not being discussed, especially in Ireland. It's not being discussed because we no longer have a fourth estate. And we are also seeing the technology platforms suppress free speech and stop the transmission of the counter-narrative, including rock-solid science, is being attacked. Except you'd have to say on Twitter, or on X as it's now called. And that's why you see me on TikTok constantly addressing my comments to the censors in the TikTok office in Dublin, because it's real and it's ongoing. So what we're seeing is a landing zone for the plan. You might say, well, what's the plan? The plan was actually flagged in the early 1950s by Hannah Arendt. She spent her life studying totalitarianism of the last century. She was at the Eichmann trial in the early 1960s, and she said in the early 1950s that the totalitarianism of the 21st century would not be led by the monsters of the last one, but by the banal bureaucrats of the next. The banal bureaucrats is exactly what we've got. And sitting behind all that, people say, well, why would this be planned? And why was it orchestrated with such military precision? Because it was military precision. That's the point. That the captivity of the media, the captivity of the platforms, and the actual propaganda that came through, that was all military level psychological operations, well thought out through decades of studying how you individually break somebody down psychologically and how you do it with populations as a whole. And when the technology came along to do that and to put us into our echo chambers, it was